Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, we are broadcasting, as always, from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And if you, as a small business owner, are tired of the impersonal treatment and experience that you get from the big mega banks, and if you're at one of those banks, and you want something better, and it's out there, but you don't know where to find it, try Renaissance Bank. Here's what the folks that I send to Renaissance tell me about their experience. They tell me that Renaissance is big enough to handle pretty much any need that they can throw at them as a small business, but they're small enough to deliver their services in a personal way. That's a magic combination that's worth taking advantage of. Go to renaissancebank.com, find one of their local offices, and give them a call. I think you'll be glad you did. By the way, they answer the phone. Isn't that interesting? Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Ana Megrelishvili.
Hello.
How are you, Ana?
I'm so great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. Ana is with the Christian Professionals Network.
That's right.
Ana, great to have you. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about you and the Christian Professionals Network.
Yes, so my name is Ana Megrelishvili, and I'm working to eradicate relational poverty. And the way that I do it through our networking organization, Christian Professionals Network Worldwide, by building a community of like-minded individuals. And on our foundation side, we are eradicating it through mentoring the homeless in existing homeless shelters here in Atlanta.
Wow, a whole lot to that. But before we get into that, I know we've piqued folks' interest in that, but before we get into that, let's talk about you and your backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm originally from Georgia, the country, not to mistake with the state of Georgia where I live now. I immigrated to the United States in 2008 to go to college at Berea College in Kentucky. And when I came, I really focused on just wealth acquisition, climbing corporate ladder for a long time. And I was atheist, which surprises a lot of people when they meet me now and learn what I do. So I really would not have been able to do what I do if not for a pretty amazing encounter I had about 4 years ago. And so I heard an audible voice in the middle of the night, one night, just very randomly. And the voice told me to go to the store, prepare food, and feed the hungry. And so the next day, I followed the instructions, didn't go to work, went to the store, prepared lunches, 24 bag lunches to be specific, started driving downtown Atlanta and giving these lunches away, and eventually came across a large group of homeless hanging out together in the street. And I went and gave all the lunches away and thought, okay, I'm done for the day, when unexpectedly one of the ladies called me and she said, "Hey, honey, come over here. I have a gift for you." And she handed me this little bird made out of clay. And when I examined it, on its chest, it was written, "Now in God's hands." And that was the moment that changed my life. And from atheist, I knew that God was real.
Wow. What a breathtaking story. Now, I think it's important for us, if you don't mind, for us to go back a little further with you, because this is not the story of a, if I can say this, random well-to-do person that suddenly feels a tug toward someone that's homeless. You had a childhood that in Russia,
yes,
that is not dissimilar to what maybe some of those folks you fed in that park
right.
Is and was.
Yes. Yes, this surprises a lot of people who meet me now and they see me, but I grew up in a highly dysfunctional family. My father was an abusive alcoholic. I experienced child sexual abuse as I was growing up. But on top of that, we weren't quite at the level of homelessness. At the end, we were saved by my grandmother, but I experienced a lot of the same symptoms, such as hunger. I had to go out and collect bottles to take to recycling at age 8 out in the street by myself so that I could buy a loaf of bread. My mother had a newborn, my brother, and so she was at home with him because my father would just abandon us for days at a time. I was so hungry that sometimes I would steal food from my classmates, which it's not something I'm proud of and still a little ashamed of. But I understand that sometimes when you feel that desperate and hungry, you just do anything, right? And I have a lot of compassion for people who are experiencing same symptoms that I have, because I just understand in that period, you're just in survivor mode.
Right.
And you need somebody who cares.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you brought, there are two words there. Compassion is one thing. We can all have compassion in a lot of ways, but you bring understanding to a depth that a lot of us cannot bring.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception in this country. When I ask a lot of people, describe to me what a homeless person looks like, many times people think immediately of a maybe mentally ill person on the side of the street. But that's actually minority. A lot of the homelessness in the United States is unseen. So there's 34 million of Americans that currently live in food insecure households, which means they experience many of the same things I have experienced, not having every meal, and a lot of children are in those households. And so what happens, relational poverty has to do with homelessness. So relational poverty is lack of community support in somebody's life. And so when something unexpected happens, and it always bound to happen, there's job loss, unexpected health issue, maybe a car accident. What will determine most of the time who will become homeless and who will not is whether they have family, friends, faith community to really go out and say, hey, I'm struggling. I need help. Can you help me in this situation? If the answer is that they don't have any of it and they're really by themselves, they will become homeless. And a lot of homeless families live in their cars. They live in extended hotel stays, so they're unseen by public eye, but nevertheless, they are homeless.
This gets at the term relational poverty that you were talking about earlier.
Yes.
You, along in your journey, I have the fortune of knowing some of your story that you have told. You experienced some of that mentorship, right? You had that along the way.
Yes. So I've been really blessed. Really, we experienced relational poverty as a family when we were growing up in Russia, because we were really isolated because we were treated as outsiders. And if not for my grandmother who rescued us out of that situation, we would have become homeless. But after that, really my childhood was really rough. But what have changed is when I came to the United States for the first time as an exchange student. And I was 16, and then I came back again when I was 20. And God was really blessing me because I have had amazing host families who became my mentors. And we don't have enough time for me to even go into just incredible stories of what they've done. One of them even moved to Georgia for me to live with them, Georgia, the country.
Oh, wow.
So it's been just phenomenal.
Wow.
And I wasn't blessed to have a family related to me by blood that I'm proud to be part of, but I am definitely blessed to have friends and host families that are not related to me by blood, but just been an incredible support system. And so this is why I think community is just so important for the happiness of every person.
So, Ana, you went through school, went to Berea for your undergrad, University of Kentucky for your MBA, go big to all the Go Big Blue fans out there, and you climbed the corporate ladder.
I did.
And that's really the prelude to that vision that you had, right? That voice that you heard.
Yes. So I had a incredible career. I was very young and just constantly promoted in my sales career. Eventually ran at like age 30, a $32 million lighting business of the company I was working on, traveling the world, living my life. And I just remember eventually I was making just so much money for a single person. Like I was like, wow. But there was this unhappiness. And I remember like one of my biggest dreams was I want to buy a condo in the middle of the city. And so I finally accomplished it in early of 2020 before the pandemic. I renovated it the way I really loved it. And then I move in. And I kid you not, a month goes by and I'm sitting on the couch and that unsatisfaction feeling and unhappiness feeling comes back. And I'm like, now what? I can't keep going with all the always big dreams of buying the next thing or the next biggest vacation and constantly feeling emptiness in my soul. And so I think really a few months later, that's why I never prayed. I was an atheist, and I was more than atheist. I think I was angry with God because of everything else that I experienced in my life as a child. But there I was in October of 2020, middle of the night, 3 a.m., awoken and feel compelled to pray for the first time. And I just say, God, if you exist, why do I keep feeling this way? What's my purpose? And then suddenly there's this audible voice that freaks me out. And then just my life gets changed. And the story about the homeless woman, but what follows is that eventually after about a year, I just quit my corporate job. And because that unhappiness just kept brewing and brewing. And I said, okay, I'm going on this year-long sabbatical to find what is God's purpose for my life. And the result is right here, Christian Professionals Network Worldwide.
Oh, wow. So let's talk about Christian Professionals Network Worldwide. We'll get to the foundation more in a second, and that you've already touched on. But let's talk about, why do you think that vision came to you, and why is that so important?
Yeah. So as I was going through my sabbatical, I was ready to go anywhere in the world. So I started traveling. Like during the 6 months, I went to 12 different countries, but eventually God brought me back to Atlanta. I started going on the silent retreats. And so during my first silent retreat, I wrote my book in 2 days. So I wrote my life story in my book, Finding Courage to Change. And at the end of the year, it was December, and my sabbatical was coming to an end, and I still didn't know what is it that is my purpose. So the point of me going to a silent retreat again was, okay, God, tell me, what am I supposed to do? I'm doing all this work of finding it. And so it was interesting because the whole time God was quiet, and I go on 5-day retreats and I really didn't hear anything. So it's last evening, my last prayer session before I go to sleep, and next morning I'm leaving the monastery, and suddenly, whoosh, I get this vision for the foundation. But it's so overwhelmingly big, I just break down on my knees and start sobbing. And I say, God, I'm nobody. How am I supposed to build this foundation that's going to solve homelessness in this country? Like, you joking. But then you calm down and then you say, okay, what if its foundation is a 5-year plan? How do I get there? I needed Christian community. I couldn't really find any that existed in Atlanta. So I said, we're going to start Christian Professionals of Atlanta. And so that's how it was born. Wow.
What you couldn't find, there are many churches, but what you're specifically talking about is Christian business oriented groups, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yes, correct. So what I was finding a gap, and as I was talking to other Christians who work in the same boat, is that a lot of the programming, if I may say that word, in the church is really focused on certain groups. So there's college, young adults, maybe married couples with children, maybe widowers afterwards, but there's really not programming for professionals who really want to meet. And typically you only meet people within one church. What I wanted to build is something that's citywide, not just one denomination. Our organization is multi-denominational because I also noticed that there's a lot of just separation within different denominations of Christianity, where I wanted to say, no, let's build God's kingdom. Let's unite.
Right.
Whether you're Catholic, Protestant, I think we serve the same God. We believe in Jesus. So let's just get together and build this community together.
That is refreshing. Thank you for that. We could go on about that one, but so you saw the need for this network, and this network of people would ultimately be the catalyst for the foundation.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the details of the Christian Professionals Network worldwide, and what happens if somebody's interested in this group. What are they signing up for?
Yeah. So when I started this group, I've gone to pretty much every networking organization and event in Atlanta. I'm very into just networking and learning and having a big community. And there was common themes in many of them where it was very much like sales oriented, where people are just really shoving each other the business cards. There was coldness in that interaction. And so I wanted a community that was really dedicated to getting to know each other and was very servant heart kind of community. So we focused on philanthropy. So I thought, if we are to follow Jesus, Jesus is the best example we have as a servant leader, period. And so he served his community, right? There's many examples, and I wanted to have networking for a cause. And so when we started meeting, every meeting, we bring on average about 60 professionals and very diverse. So we have probably the most diverse group you'll ever meet, just every race, gender, vocation, very diverse group of people. And we commonly want to serve our community. So we focus on featuring different nonprofits that are operating in the Atlanta market to allow them to really just share their mission, and we have a tangible call to action toward that nonprofit, not just monetarily, but service projects. So we do a lot of volunteer projects, just wanting to be that group that is known in our community. Hey, Christian Professionals of Atlanta chapter are going out there, they're serving us. It's more than just networking. It's about just building this community of like-minded individuals.
Yeah, that's so important, because when you have your sleeves rolled up side by side with someone, then you really get to know them, right? You get beyond whatever veneer folks have up at a after hours or something like that. You really get to know them in a way you wouldn't otherwise.
Right. Yeah. And I think genuine friendships just get established. So we have a lot of just what was interesting when I started the networking, I thought most people would come for business networking, which is true about maybe 50, 60% of the time. What surprised me when I surveyed people, they said a lot of them, I would say close to 50%, came for genuine friendship and connections. They just lacked community. So I just remember somebody said, I just want to find somebody with whom I can play my musical instrument with. I thought that was such a neat response, you know?
That is.
And so it's more than just business networking. It's really building your capital through relationships. People don't understand that relationships is your intangible capital. And so that's what we're trying to build for every person who comes to our networking organization, is that intangible capital.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because it is your, if I can, another way to put it is it's your off-balance sheet asset, right? You cannot measure it in a traditional kind of way or in some quantitative way, but qualitatively, it's really in a lot of ways, the beginning and end of what you're able to access in terms of your ability to do what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some ways you can put statistics around it. Like, I think 50% of jobs in the US never get published. It really gets you through connections that you have.
Right.
And there's many other aspects of the relationship that just give you access to things that are not advertised, opportunities. And while it's not direct correlation, there's many different indirect things that are happening that point to the fact that your relationships are your intangible capital.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And just to underline it, this group is not about, no one's there to proselytize each other or anything like that, because it's there to genuinely get to know each other in wherever folks are. And so no one needs to flash their card at the door in terms of their affiliations.
Nobody is like at the door and asking you, do you believe in Jesus?
Yeah, there's none of that. I can attest to that, folks, because I've been to a meeting.
Yes.
So how does this translate, you think, for your members in terms of their business life and their ability to lead every day?
Yeah, so I'm just love hearing the success stories and just connections that people are meeting and just connecting. We don't have many nonprofits as members, but all of the ones that we have found amazing and big donors through the networking, which is huge.
Yeah.
Because right there you have qualified people who want to serve and want to give. There's some friendships that have just blossomed beyond just business. I know people who are business owners who found clients. And so these are all amazing success stories to me. But bigger than that, I just love hearing the feedback. So one of the constant feedbacks that I hear from people is how safe and how welcomed they feel when they enter our room. And so that's a huge compliment to me, because that's exactly the kind of environment we want to bring. We have greeters at the door who welcome you, introduce you, because I know that one of the most intimidating, scariest thing for a new person to walk into a room of strangers and not know anybody.
That's right.
And so we take that away from that experience by having a greeter and welcoming you into our network. And we always say, join our circle.
That's wonderful. How often does the group meet?
So we meet in person every month at different locations, and then we have all kinds of online workshops and masterminds, and then we also have members-only get-togethers that are more private.
Got it. And so you can get all these details from the website.
Yes,
correct?
Correct. If you go to cpnworldwide.com, you can find all that information on the website.
And folks will have that in the show notes on the episode page. You can find it there. So, Ana, let's talk about the foundation and the pivot you made toward the foundation. And I think we've established why the homelessness issue is such a passion for you and why you think it's so important. But let's dig in a little more to relational poverty and talk about why that particular piece of it is so important.
Absolutely. So when I had that initial vision, God, as one of the parts of the vision, showed me this newspaper article that would come out that said, this model solves homelessness in the United States. So I immediately, as soon as I started Christian Professionals of Atlanta, I purchased Christian Professionals of America name as well, because I knew that's where we're going to head. But interestingly enough, the first request for the new chapter came from Brazil.
Aha.
And so at that point, I said, okay, Lord, I guess I'm dreaming too small. This needs to be worldwide. So that's how the name Christian Professionals Network Worldwide came early this year with the big rebrand that we've done. So I focused a lot, okay, let's start opening new chapters. Let's start franchising process. So worked on that. But then before I pull any plugs, I always go on silent retreats and I seek God's wisdom. I don't make any major decisions without it. So this was no different. Went on my silent retreats in May, and God was so clear. He said, nope, you need to start foundation now. Don't start new chapters. And I said, okay, Lord, like more work, but I trust you. So we started the foundation within 30 days of that silent retreat. So this was a phenomenal journey. I don't know how familiar you are with the IRS process of approving nonprofit status, but typical process is 3 to 6 months.
Right, if you're lucky.
We got our approval in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt such God's favor. Within 30 days, we had our first, fundraising event. So it's really launched an official. And it all made sense. Why? Because 2 days after our fundraising event, here comes out an announcement that the Supreme Court made ruling that homelessness now punishable by law. And so I was like, okay, God, so clearly you don't want your children to be now punished for not being able to afford housing and be put in jail. So our mission is even more important. So this is how relational poverty piece fits into it. During our research, we found that relational poverty is the number one reason why people become homeless. And then we started looking at existing homeless shelters and how they solve homelessness. And most of them focus on getting them back into housing, and many of them help with jobs. But the problem is you get them back on their feet, but they're still in that risk group. If something else happens, they're again back out in homelessness. Between 10 to 70% of people who go through homeless shelters get back to homeless shelters soon within the next 5 years. And so we started looking and said, okay, so the piece of the relational poverty is not solved. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to partner with existing homeless shelters and come in and become that mentor to the homeless. So these are people who are on their path to reintegration into the society. So they're working really hard to get out of poverty and get out of homelessness. We have one-on-one mentorship between a Christian professional and a homeless living in a existing homeless shelter. And we focus on faith plus community model because we believe that faith community is an important element of support. So we encourage homeless to start attending church so that they can really build the faith community. And then lastly, we give them membership in our networking organization. And so this way they get to come in and meet Christian professionals and expand their professional network. Like I mentioned before, 50% of jobs never get advertised. So we're trying to give them better opportunities for advancement in their career, mentorship, support. And so the goal is to really surround them with the community so that relational poverty is no longer the case. Because when they walk in, most of them don't even have one emergency contact.
Right.
By the time they're done with our program, we hope that they will have at least 3.
Yeah, that is really important. And I think that's one area where we as a society fall down, because we have a society that's really big on celebrating, quote unquote, getting pulled up by your bootstraps, right? That if you just are determined enough, you can do anything. And the truth of the matter is we've all had help along the way. Absolutely. In some form or fashion. And whether we acknowledge it or not, and sometimes it's help we aren't even aware of, right? And that's really what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is giving, and sometimes it's really practical, right? It's not just a boy or that a girl. It's really practical things that people don't know. If you, for example, if you were in the military and come out and you've had some sort of issue that's caused you to be homeless because of that experience, you don't have any experience looking for a job because you went straight to the military, right? So you need some practical help along the way. That's just one example.
Yeah, absolutely. Some examples that I have heard so far is that some homeless living don't even know how to open savings account.
Yep.
And that they should not be spending all the money that they earn. They think that they need to spend all the money that they earn.
Right.
Just help with interviews, right? Just the professional help. And we're also building a list of different nonprofits and just different skilled professionals who could do different presentations, workshops, and coaching for them, because I agree, they do need they need a mentor who will encourage them, because when you're in survival mode, the world is dark, right?
Yes.
So you need somebody who shows you your life doesn't have to stay this way. There is an opportunity for you to grow and be better. So that's super important.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you with the skill set, that also has to be there. And so you marry the two together, and then you finally have a person who can thrive.
Yeah, that's powerful. Very powerful. Ana, what you're doing is you're asking for folks that are interested in your organization, certainly to come get the benefit of the networking that happens in CPN, but you are also asking some of those folks to maybe consider being a mentor.
Right. Yes. And I think we always focus on the benefits of the mentee, but there is an interesting thing that happens to the mentor. They also get a lot of new perspective on life, a lot of just satisfaction for knowing that this friendship will have a long-lasting positive impact on somebody's life. And so imagine, in Georgia, we currently have about 10,000 homeless. If we just got 10,000 mentors, we would eradicate homelessness in this state. And to me, we have how many million people living in Georgia? I call for you to join this movement and become a mentor because you have a tangible way of changing somebody's life.
That's a powerful call. Thank you for that. And as we conclude, are there any last thoughts that you have about where you're going and what you see ahead for your organization?
Yes, my goal is, and for our organization, is to really prove the concept of that relational poverty is really that missing link in the battle against homelessness in this country, to prove this concept in Atlanta so that then we can start growing it and expanding into other cities that need it. And so building this national movement against homelessness. And one thing I want to say is that relational poverty does not only affect homeless population. It's veterans, like you mentioned, it's refugees, it's children aging out of foster care at 18, human trafficking survivors. The list is longer. And so if we prove that having community can really have not just personal impact, but economical impact on people's lives and this country's lives. Imagine if you have the entire population capable of just being successful and really connected. That's a beautiful vision in the world, and that's the one that we're striving for.
Ana, this has been a breathtaking time, so thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story and your work, and it's great work, and I'm just delighted that we could shine a light on it and celebrate it, and we wish you all the best as you continue to build it. But again, before we let you go and get at that work, let's share again how folks can get in touch and learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are a professional who's been looking for a community that goes beyond just meeting, but having a tangible impact on Atlanta area, we hope that you'll join us and go on to cpnworldwide.com and check out all of our upcoming events and join us. We have our upcoming event on August 27th, and we are waiting for you.
Ana Megrelishvili, she is with Christian Professionals Network Worldwide. First chapter in Brazil. That's pretty cool. I guess the second chapter technically, but that's pretty cool. Ana, thanks again for coming in.
My pleasure. It's been such an honor. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. My honor, actually. Hey, folks, just a couple of quick things before we let you go. If you are looking for a place that knows farm to table, in fact, they were farm to table before that was cool, frankly. They have had a garden behind their restaurant for years. The place I'm talking about is Casa Nova Italian Restaurant. They do fresh, classic, authentic, and traditional Italian cuisine, bringing in those herbs, zucchini, peppers, corn, tomatoes from their garden out back and making those cooked-to-order dishes that you will love, I promise you. I go there a lot, and it's fantastic. And Maria Fondora and her family have been a staple in the Alpharetta area for years, and if you don't know about them, you need to go to CasaNovaRestaurant.com to learn more, where to find their location, and also if you've got catering needs, they're a good choice for that as well. Also, just a quick shout out, if you don't mind, for my book. If you are a solo or small firm professional services provider and you need help with your positioning, your business development, understanding your value, pricing the value of your services, this book is written for you. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more and to find out where to buy the book. Also, just a quick shout out to you, our listener. So we're almost to show number 800, and I don't know what I expected when we started this little sojourn that we've been on for over 8 years, but I did not expect show number 800, and we've only gotten this far because of you, because you continue to support us in so many different ways. And I am so grateful for you and your support, because you help us live into our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region, and I am grateful for you. Thank you. So for my guest, Ana Megrelishvili, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.